Most CEOs view HR as a cost center. They don't view HR like, the reason I refer to it as talent is people have issues with HR. No one has issues with talent. A CEO often thinks they are a magic unicorn for talent, and they're not. They have bias just like everyone else.
What are the different and dangerous hiring patterns that you're seeing in the market right now?
The worst thing to happen to a person is to be put in a job where they can't succeed. So don't rush to hire. Don't just put butts in seats.
Mike Zani is the CEO at the Predictive Index and author of the best-selling book, The Science of Dream Teams. He's a former Olympic sailing coach turned talent expert and now helps companies around the world hire smarter, build better teams, and unlock their people's full potential. In this episode, he drops some serious truth about hiring, leadership, and why most businesses get it wrong.
What role does the talent needs to take right now in the market to make sure that he gets the best overview of what his career should look like?
The idea that it's not just an AI answer. It's about a lot of honesty and reflection on the things that you want to do and the things that you are good at and the things that you are not good at. You need to develop your talent and invest in your people. If you don't have an internal training program to invest, whether it's a mentee, a mentor program, whether it's learning and development, or just coaching internally to let people to grow and expand, it's a really beautiful thing when you put people in a role where they can be successful. And you need data and tools.
If you were to find yourself a job right now, what would you do differently when compared to how you were at your time looking for a job?
Eat coffee with experts.
Mike, amazing having you on the show. How are you doing today?
Super, Victor. It's great to be here. And I actually have iced coffee because it's 40 degrees Celsius, not because I'm just American, but maybe it's both.
No, but you look, if I could, the thing is, having iced coffee here in Portugal is very rare. It's very difficult, actually, to get iced coffee on the street. I love myself some frappuccinos from Starbucks. I grew very much since I'm Brazilian, I grew very much into the American culture as well. So having iced coffee, having frappuccinos and everything else is a part of my life. But we don't have it here. And if I go to any cafe around here in Portugal and I ask for an iced coffee, I think they're going to kick me out. So the best that I can do is have a normal hot coffee and make it happen. But
Perfect.
Coffee is not the discussion of today. We're actually, as I said, right here to talk about the predictive index, the things that you have been building. But before I start on that, while I was preparing myself for this episode, I read a piece of trivia about you, and I want us to talk about it. You were selected as the Coach of the Year in 1996 by the U.S. Olympic Committee. Is that it?
That's right. That's right. It was a former world when I was a professional sailor, an Olympic sailing coach, and it was a very romantic time in my life.
That's a very nice look. Whenever I have more experienced people on the show, I usually refrain from asking about their age. I'm just going to let you know that when you were the Coach of the Year, I was a baby, and here we are talking together.
That's
again.
great.
What an amazing time to be alive.
I love the energy of youth. So, Victor, you can bring lots of energy today.
Perfect. Mike, let us start then, as we are just discussing about your time as a coach. Before you were known as a CEO, as a talent optimizer by itself, you were coaching the athletes. Why don't you walk us through this transition between you becoming a coach, being one of the best, and then going away, leading the PI?
The decision to leave professional sailing and coaching was because I wanted to have a family. That's the short answer. I think if you travel the world and you live this romantic lifestyle, and I've been to Cascais and sailed great regattas there, it's one that you're going to choose to not have a normal family life, possibly not even a family. And I put too much value on that. So that's the short answer. But I think when I look back on the transition from being a coach and a high-end athlete to going into business, I first enjoyed, business was the first thing that was exciting, like sailing, the competition, the sort of the challenge of it all. But then it was much later that I went into the space of talent. So you refer to it as HR, and that's a proper way to view it. I really view it as talent. I want to put world-class teams on the business field, if you will. And it's interesting that coaching the high-end athletes and seeing world-class preparation, seeing different ways to win. Some people do it with high attention to detail and pristine preparation. Other people do it with more seat of the pants sort of gut reaction. And to see those stylistic things work. And as a coach, which is like a good leader, is you modify yourself to get the most out of your athletes. I think a good manager modifies themselves to get the most out of their employees. And that's probably my biggest lesson learned from those days.
You're also a bestseller. You have your book talking about it. It's called The Science of Dream Teams, right? So talking about talent and teams is what you love. You see, as you said, talent, I think it's a very good replacement for HR, especially because HR has a weight to the word, right? Some people view HR as a negative thing, others as a positive, depending on the experiences with the companies you worked for. How much has it all changed since you started? You started I'm actually going to ask you this, and I'm sorry for not doing my proper research, but you're not the founder of the PI. You actually went ahead afterwards. It was created, and now you're the CEO. So when you got into the predictive index, as of now, in regards to talent acquisition, talent optimization, how much has it changed?
Well, I want to go back maybe even a little further.
Please do.
So my business partner and I, we met at business school, and we ran into this business model called the search fund, which is basically buying used companies with other people's money. Okay. We didn't have any money of our own. So we bought our first company, and we went to a fancy business school and thought we knew a lot about a lot of things. And we knew a lot about strategy. We were right. We knew enough about finance to know how much to pay for the company. We had a good enough network to raise the money to do it. But we totally missed the talent piece, the HR piece. We tried to do it ourselves. We missed it in due diligence when we went to buy the company. The first 2 years of owning the company, we struggled by having the wrong people in place. So we had to sort of get a master's degree in HR. And this was circa 2004. We ran into the PI back then and were customers. I think it's that most CEOs view HR as a cost center. Most CEOs view HR tactically. They do payroll, they accrue for time off, they do employee handbooks. If there's a frustration somewhere in the organization, interpersonal issue, they help fix it. They don't view HR like, the reason I refer to it as talent is people have issues with HR. No one has issues with talent. Yeah. Like you put good talent on the field, they're like, yeah, I'm all for that. They go, I noticed you are a 500-person company with one HR person. Are you really investing in talent? And what they're doing is their HR is not doing it. Someone else is doing the talent piece. And it's interesting. If you'll notice in the news today that there are a lot of famous people buying sports teams and franchises. True. The first thing that people do, ownership, when they buy a sports team, they work on who the new coach is going to be. Mm-hmm. And then they work on their talent. It's sort of like you're going to spend $5 billion on some team. And you want it to be, these people are egomaniacs. They want them to be excellent. So you work on who's going to manage the people and which people they manage. And every sport calls those names a different thing. But talent has become so important. They're trading for talent. They're looking for every analytic detail to find talent that others can't at a better price point at the right time. They trade away talent before it fades. So it's amazing that sport is 20, 30 years ahead of business in this game of talent. And so one of the reasons we purchased the Predictive Index, the company is 70 years old, so founded in 1955, a long time ago. So I feel of myself as really a refounder, not a founder of this old company.
Kind of like a reboot. The industry likes doing reboots and remakes all over the place as well. We can talk about it being a remake, I think, right? One piece of entertainment media that I was thinking about right now while you were talking about sports team is actually Ted Lasso. Have you ever watched it?
It's brilliant.
It's my everything as well. And I think even unknowingly, you were talking about Ted, right? You have the sports coach, knew nothing about sports. He does know about American football. He knew nothing about the original football. But then he was a brilliant person, making sure that the team was working as colleagues and that everything was intertwined. It is a brilliant show. For those who haven't watched Ted Lasso, I think we highly recommend that you go and watch it.
It may be one of the best management coaching shows in the world.
I agree. No, I think it's one of the best shows in the world, actually. I like it so much. Even my wife, who's not a sports fan at all, it looks like a sports TV show, but it's not. That's the brilliant part about it.
It's fantastic.
And one thing that Ted does walk into his coach time at AFC Richmond, was understanding who is a talent inside the team and who is not. So actually my question right now would be, what makes someone stand out today? Who do you consider to be a talent? Because I'm pretty sure it's not like a format, it's not like a set piece where, oh, you're now a talent. No, it's a mix of things depending on the role, depending on the market, depending on a lot of things. You can be a talent here and a talent here, but maybe not a talent here. So in your opinion, whenever somebody even younger asks you, like, how can I stand out today? What do you usually say?
I use this framework of head, heart, briefcase. So the head is how you think, your behavioral preferences, your cognitive capabilities, actually things that can be measured. You know, the predictive index measures behavioral science and cognitive science. The heart is your passion, your values, your energy, the motor that you have inside that drives you. And you may have a motor for one company, but you may not for another. And we see this in sport. Some people put out great efforts at some teams and then they get traded and maybe we see more, maybe we see less. And then the briefcase, it really should be called knapsack today, but it's your curriculum vitae or your resume. It says, here are the skills that you have. When you go to hire a 22-year-old out of university, they don't have a briefcase. They don't have anything in their backpack. You're just hiring head and heart. And there are certain positions that need all three. As an example, if you're going to be the head of product development at a biotechnology firm, you need head, heart, and briefcase. Now, the proportions, maybe heart needs to be the least. You need a lot of head and a briefcase for that particular job. But if I'm hiring you as a sales person and I'm just putting you into my machine, my sales machine, and you're going in at the very bottom, and we hope you go to the top, that, you know, we're not going to get any briefcase. We just want head and heart. We actually have a model for the type of salespeople that succeed in our environment. Might be different for another company, but we put you in and we train you and we invest in you and we watch you grow. And so the idea is I'd like to have an analysis of head, heart, and briefcase before every role, every position. And let's just say that I found you to be excellent at aspects of sales, but it turns out that it wasn't your passion and you wanted to do something else. My first thing is if I think you still have this great combination, I'm like, well, what other jobs in the company do you like? And can you be successful here? I keep you in sort of the stable, if you will.
Yeah. People are very much talking nowadays about how much expensive it is to fire somebody or to even let somebody go because they weren't happy and having to rewire, having to go again to an onboarding process. So it's becoming a discussion mostly across LinkedIn right now that people understand that you shouldn't go firing somebody or you shouldn't let somebody go that easy as it was years ago. And I also know that the PI is helping breaking that cycle, the vicious cycle of hiring wrongly, firing wrongly as well. What are the different and dangerous hiring patterns that you're seeing in the market right now?
Well, I think when people need to, in the United States, we call it putting butts in seats. And if you, I don't know what the translation would be, but they're desperate to just get warm bodies. And this is a mistake. If you're desperate, you make mistakes. You let in, potentially individuals who can't succeed. And the worst thing to happen to a person is to be put in a job where they can't succeed. So don't rush to hire. Don't just put butts in seats. Actually have a philosophy. What are the types of raw material or people I need to put into this role? That's the first thing. And the second lesson I learned is one that is very popular in Europe, especially in Germany, which is you're given sort of 6 months of a trial before someone sort of becomes a full and proper employee. I don't know the terminology they use in Germany, but when they cross the 6-month mark, you kind of own them for lifetime employment, because Germany tends to be more lifetime employment law. In the United States, this is a foreign concept. But because of that lifetime employment sort of attitude, this is a hard gate at 6 months. It says, did I get what I thought I was getting? Is the person, now that I know more about their head, heart, and briefcase, and how fast they learn and their drive and energy, do I want to continue with this person? So first, don't just put butts in seats. Second, have a very hard gate at 6 months and make a decision. Maybe the role is wrong and you put them somewhere else in your organization. And maybe they're not a good fit and it's okay. Let them succeed somewhere else. And that is so important, those two elements. The third thing, and I think is really important, is you need to develop your talent and invest in your people. If you don't have an internal training program to invest, whether it's a mentee, a mentor program, whether it's learning and development or just coaching internally to let people to grow and expand. We only have two entry-level positions at our company. It's sales and it is the call center. A lot of people, when they come out of university, they're not excited to go into sales or the call center. But this is where we get our raw material. And a lot of people who succeed in other areas of our company started at the call center and sales, and we found places for them because their career said, hey, I don't want to be in a call center my whole life, but I really love the product. I love the company. I love the vision. Are there other things I can do here?
AI is changing so much about this, what you're talking about right now, because I remember you're actually touching very to the correct spot here, because I remember when I was in university 10 years ago, I was thinking about a lot of different roles besides sales or any customer facing role. I was more thinking about, I don't know, social media marketing at the time, product marketing, different things. And then it was one man who met me out of a ride, which I gave him. And he was the one who told me, like, Victor, you're very different from the rest of those that I'm working with, as you don't shut up. He basically said that. Have you ever worked with sales? And I was like, Paulo, the only thing that I sold was like old Apple devices and games where I had to sell games to buy new games for myself. So I never did this. But he found something, and ever since then, I've been working with sales. And what I was going to say about AI is 10 years ago, if I had an AI to help me understand better, it would have been maybe simpler. And now we do have an AI. Not only do we have AI, we also have literally the PI helping companies getting hirings better. And we have content over YouTube. We have best-selling books. We have a lot of sources to understand how we can position ourselves. My question to you is, what role does the talent needs to take right now in the market to make sure that he gets the best overview of what his career should look like?
So it's interesting. We actually help companies do the design of the position and the type of things they let in. We don't go the other side, which is go to universities and help groom people to be their best self, if you will. Now, both are noble exercises,
of course.
you know, and the idea that, you know, I have an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old who are in college, and I'm very interested in them finding their best self. So the idea that it's not just an AI answer, it's about a lot of honesty and reflection on the things that you want to do and the things that you are good at and the things that you are not good at. And these are experiments that people make. And I actually find it's easier for people who are not your parents, uncles, aunts, friends of the family, children who are just young adults, even early adults, not even super young adults, that are still wondering what they want to do in their life, to have conversations with people who can be non-judgmental, and they can really be open and vulnerable about what it is they want to do. Some people, you know, they're like, and for me, it was, you know, I didn't want to go into sales. I would have been great at sales. I am great at sales. But the idea is I didn't go into sales as an initial job because I went to an Ivy League school, and the vibe at the Ivy League school was that sales is beneath me, and, you know,
that is
some
true.
sort of lesser.
I
and
used
I'm
to think
just like,
the same.
I'm like, what are you talking about? Sales is like the greatest training ground in business you'll ever meet.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is it a dirty word? This should be a place that it's almost like everyone should serve in the military and everyone should be in sales.
I agree. I agree with both. Yeah, I 100% agree.
Although we should kill less people.
Three things that we 100% agree. Yes, for sure.
So, you know, I think that honesty, now getting to the, you know, real things that you can do, behavioral science. I'll tell you the story. Jim Cook, who founded Samuel Adams or Boston Beer Works, he was the progenitor of all craft beer. He changed the world with craft beer. It was less important to change in Europe. You already had good beer, but it was really important for Americans to get better beer. You know, thank you, Jim. He is a devotee of the Predictive Index.
That's nice.
He actually gave it to his current wife before their second date. So he's that into it. But anyway, this young person comes to him applying for an accounting job, and he gives him the Predictive Index. And he takes the interview, and he says, why do you want to be an accountant? And the guy says, well, my dad was an accountant. He told me to go to get a degree in accounting because you'll have steady employment for the rest of your life, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, you don't have the profile of an accountant. You have the profile of a salesperson. Have you ever thought being in sales? And he goes, because I'm not hiring you as an accountant. But he goes, I'll hire you right now in sales. And the guy goes, wow, yeah, I'll take a job in sales. So Jim tells me he's like, this guy was a huge success in sales for 25 years.
That's
And he
so
says,
nice.
I was the guy, the CEO, the founder was the guy to tell him. You're like, it's not this, it's that. Something his dad couldn't tell him. Obviously, he got all the way to the front door with an accounting degree. If he didn't run into Jim Cook, he would have been an accountant somewhere and probably been miserable. So it's a really beautiful thing when you put people in a role where they can be successful.
It is true.
And you need data and tools. And like we use predictive index, behavioral tools, cognitive tools. We use frameworks like Head, Heart, Briefcase. We have a lot more tools, like how you'll interact with your boss or the team based on this data. And now with AI, it's accessible with a query. You're
It
like,
is.
how will Mike be on this team? It'll be like, here's your answer.
Yeah.
And it's coming together.
Do you feel, since now it's, I'm going to say quicker to get those results back from the lab, do you feel that we can actually change the way people have been hired in the companies, shorten the interview round, shorten the rounds? The rounds have become such a meme, especially in startups. You have 21 rounds before you even join a company. You have to go through so many panels. It's becoming, and you can read this from different sources all over the world, that the hiring process is becoming very tiresome. Why is it hired still so damn hard if we have so many tools available the companies can utilize and have access to?
I think part of it is the human resources discipline is kind of risk averse. And
I see
this
what you
shouldn't
mean.
surprise anybody. As a matter of fact, there's a recent study by Bain showing that AI, as it enters different areas of companies, legal and HR are the two lowest, like the late adopter. But if you look at HR, they're about preventing risk,
Yeah.
mishires, fairness, bias. They don't want to pay people the wrong way. They don't want to miss a crew for time off, all this stuff. They're risk averse. As a matter of fact, when they see risky people, they're like, that person's going to be a problem in the future because
That
two
is true.
risky people, at a holiday party, who knows what happens. So
Yeah.
they're kind of risk averse by their discipline. I don't think they're letting go of old things as they embrace new things. And you can't just add.
Mhm.
If you add and add and add, you just get this bulky, bloated process, which is what we have. They have to get rid of some things that don't work, and they have to let them go. And if you don't let them go, there's no room for the new. And I think if you are risk averse, change management is hard and it takes a long time. So maybe a new company, if you're the CEO of a new company and it sees success and you grow to 50 people and you're the boss, you can put all new systems in. 20 years from now, maybe it's different
All different.
story that you're still doing that thing that you thought was great 20 years ago, but you've
Yeah.
added some stuff and you really needed to kill some of your little pet projects that might have even been the boss's pet project. I've done
Yeah.
it myself.
We're all prone to that. It's gonna happen sooner or later with everybody. That is the case for a lot of markets, a lot of departments, not even HR. Thinking about the idea itself that you have right now, your own book. Let's move away a little bit from the general market questions. I want to focus a little bit more about Mike. As I said at the intro, your book became one bestseller. Congratulations about that. That's very
Thank
nice indeed. What was the core idea you wanted leaders to take away from it? Readers themselves, actually.
Well, the idea was actually to use the data that we were sitting on to really create the discipline of talent optimization. People had to change their minds about how they, not only how they hire, but it's also how they develop their people internally. And I want it to be a wake-up call. I spend about a third of my time trying to whack people with a stick in the head, just trying to get them to change their mind about a new way to do things, a new discipline, and to let go of some old things. Because, a CEO often thinks they are a magic unicorn for talent, and they're not. They have bias just like everyone else. They're the boss, so they get away with some of these biases. But if someone walks in with a tattoo on their neck, they're like, yeah, I can't get over that, so I don't hire them, even though they might be one of the best people you could possibly have for the role. And the same is true about what school you went to, your last name, the color of your skin. A lot of things, savory and unsavory, that come into these biases. So to change people's mind, like if you're using the original football or European football, and you don't care what the color of someone's skin is, you're like, what's their, or if they have tattoos, if you didn't hire people of color who didn't have tattoos, you wouldn't have much of a sports team at the current moment in football.
No.
So it's just like it's laughable that we do this in business, and sport is 20 years ahead of us. They have statistics, They have metrics. They've been able to take out a lot of this sort of bias that is not rooted in any sort of factual data. Now they have new biases that are rooted in their new factual data. And it's interesting. There's a very interesting lawsuit going on right now. Workday, which is the largest HCM, which is human capital management system. Now, Workday might be one of the largest companies that most people haven't heard of. It's got 2/3 the market cap of Salesforce, and it's the number one HR platform, if you will. It's more than an HR platform, but they're being sued. They're being sued for bias in their hiring practice, and it went to class action. And what was interesting is they're not just suing, the person didn't sue the companies that use Workday. They're suing Workday themselves.
Workday.
That's right. So it's like the companies usually get sued first. Hey, you have biased practices.
Yeah.
No, this is because they believe that there's AI in their hiring system, which are preventing people in a protected class from being hired. And it tipped to a class action suit. Now, we already have conservative HR practitioners, so this is not going to help. This is going to make it worse. They're going to say, see, look at Workday. They're in trouble. Yeah. But the idea is Workday, I'm not sure whether they're right or wrong. I'm really interested in seeing this. But Workday put tools in to do what you said, which is to make it work better, to go faster, to maybe make it less bulky. And now they're being sued because of fairness and bias. So we had bias with the CEO trying to evaluate all talent themselves and not hiring the person with that knuckle tattoos. And now we have bias in our data algorithms.
Yeah, but the things about tattoo is one of the things that my father was very much concerned before I joined the marketplace. Like, you should never get a tattoo yourself. Now I have a full arm with tattoos about myself. And it is, as you say, sometimes people can look at it and, I don't know, see Victor as like, since he's filled with tattoos, he must, I don't know, treat customers bad. No. As you say, the bias thing is still very rooted, but across the entirety of society, not only in the USA. Brazil has very similar issues as well. Here in Europe, I have so many friends, Portuguese friends. If we are going to talk about bias, let's give a real example here. I have those that could have it all. They're white Europeans who speak several languages, and they're still not getting hired. The sentiment, the feeling that they have is the companies are not even looking at them as people anymore. It's just numbers in the wrong way. What we're talking about here, you and I, is looking at the numbers in the right way, as sports teams are doing. They study so much before they are going to hire a player. They have all the metrics to back it up, the decision of spending so much money. And companies, as you're saying so yourself, they don't have it. But one thing that I'm seeing right now that is maybe pushing towards this better future where companies will start looking at the number, yes, but also at the person, is through a lot of leaders that I follow, and they're sharing the word as you're doing right now. They're speaking on LinkedIn. They're creating content about how they like to work with their own teams. They are talking about what's right and what's wrong. And we usually have several markets and companies defending the idea of video content to show themselves around the world, to spread awareness and authority and everything else. So for those leaders that know that the system is kind of messed up at the moment, do you have a recommendation for them to keep on going towards the right direction in regards to how they are spreading the word, how they are changing things inside the company? You yourself, as Mike, as the CEO, as that guy who knows about a lot of things leadership-wise, what would you tell the current leaders that want to improve about what they should be looking forward and what they should do to make sure that the market also sees this difference?
It's interesting that CEOs 20 years ago were just told to shut up. Don't have an opinion about anything other than your own business and keep your head down politically, religiously, whatever.
True.
Interestingly, over COVID and because of the Floyd issue and Black Lives Matter. George Floyd, thank you. People started speaking up and had this permission. That CEOs all of a sudden were given permission to have a point of view. There's now backlash against that, saying, no, we actually don't want your point of view anymore, because you have customers who are on both sides of, well, this is very typical in the United States, of a very divided political spectrum. And they're like, shut up again, right? They don't want to hear from you. The client says, I like your product, but if you open your mouth and I don't agree with it, I'm not going to buy it. The reason I speak up about talent is I'm in the talent business. I think other CEOs, take Jim Cook. If he's in the beer business, is he going to speak up about talent? He will if he really believes, and he does. And he does speak about talent, and I encourage him because he's very good at it. But there are other people who shouldn't speak about talent. They have no business speaking about talent because they're actually really bad at it. I think the question of like when CEOs should speak up, it's like, do they have a strong opinion? Does this opinion match with their area of expertise? And can they be open-minded and have a discussion and a debate about the things they talk about? Because I have strong opinions about talent. I'm not 100% right. I would love to debate someone who believes the opposite side of me with talent. And you know what? We'll both learn from each other, and we'll
Hmm.
both make points, and we'll maybe even hopefully come closer together and be like, I appreciate you.
That is true. That is true. Having a debate whenever healthy is always helpful. Whenever.
Yeah, I think so. And it's harder today because people just
It is
tribal up and go to their sides.
super hard.
Talent doesn't seem to be people again, no one complains about having good talent. But then if we went down a heavy DEI route right now, that's more divisive.
Hmm.
I wish it weren't, but it is. Like I said, 5 years ago it wasn't. 10
Yeah.
years ago it was.
Yeah.
Let's see where it goes next.
Let's see where it goes next. If you were to find yourself a job right now with everything that we just talked about, every single details, every single nuances, how the market is operating, how the CEOs are operating, what would you do differently when compared to how you were at your time looking for a job?
What's interesting is I later in life found out that I really liked working with my hands, and
Okay.
in my hobbies, I build things. I like to
That's
build.
nice.
And it's very rewarding when you do things like when you make software. It's an intangible. You can use the product, but you're making software and you're writing code and there's a front end and there's a back end. It's like sometimes it's nice to make something. And I think I would probably, if I was back in my 18-year-old self, I might invest more in making things. I like making things. I find it very rewarding. I find being a CEO very rewarding. Maybe being a CEO of you that makes things
Of Lego,
of value. Yeah,
in your case.
it is very valuable. So I do think people want to do like happiness it's hard to quantify, but there are things like having a belief system, having family, having real friends, and having work with purpose. What you're really talking about is how would I make sure that I continue to have work with purpose, in my 20-year-old self. And that's what I'm telling my 20-year-old kids. I was like, please find work that with purpose that you like, and you're
Hmm.
going to be a lot happier than you would be otherwise.
You see a lot of these about people talking about the Gen Z wave, where they are not accepting anything anymore like we had to accept at our times. You see people mentioning how Gen Zs want to be paid fairly, how they don't want to be working from Monday to Saturday, how they understand that boundaries is a thing that should exist no matter what. So it's something that the society is changing. It might just take a little bit longer for us to see the true results and how the shift towards employment will be, but it is indeed changing, even if it's slow paced. And then this brings me to my last question, Mike. For these Gen Z people that are watching us, those that are walking into the market right now, finding the difficulties of it all, what would you advise them in regards to positioning themselves good enough during the interview cycle? Because the interview cycle can be very much scary for a lot of people. Having to meet somebody else online. Right now it's all remote, so you have to meet somebody else remotely at their own house, and you have to share your intimacy because now you're in your house. Of course, this is for the remote workers over there. But what would you advise these people in regards to this hiring process, which is the interview phase, the phase where they need to show good first impression, they need to follow up, they need to present themselves good? I don't know. What is it that Mike recommends?
Well, the comment that kids these days has been said every generation, and also statements like, when I was a kid, we did this. So what ends up happening is every generation, when they look down 2 or 3 generations, because these generations are what, 10, 15 years long ish, 12,
Mhm.
something like that. You just keep going. You just keep going down. I would just say be open-minded to what you can learn from above, and don't be overly committed to your generation. The idea is multi-generational families that live together in close proximity are more balanced and stronger. Multi-generational businesses where once we get over that I'm Gen X and you're a millennial or a Gen Z or you're a boomer, once we get over that, we can learn from each other.
That is true.
And they need to be open-minded because you can't just say, oh my God, I got interviewed by this boomer. They had no idea. You're like, what do they have to offer you? And what can you learn from them? And I think it's being open-minded about this. And it takes the edge off of your generational stereo. So right now, I need to maybe be more open to youthful ideas. And if you're Gen Z on the other side of that equation, you need to be more open-minded to Gen X and
Yeah,
Boomer
yeah,
ideas.
yeah. That is true. It makes sense. It starts at house, right? We have our father, Jim, whatever, 2 gems above you. You learn from the guy or your mother or your grandmother, whoever it is.
And more importantly, your grandparents.
And more
'Cause
importantly,
you're like, wow, that's 4
yeah,
generations away. Well, you're like,
that's
how
where
do you
you
think?
really see the difference. That's where you really see how it all changed.
And I actually think that 4 generational skip, different societies have different age brackets, but if you have the blessing of having a grandparent or a great grandparent in the house that you can learn from, there's a reverence and respect most of the time where when they tell you something, you listen. And
True.
your first reaction is like, you don't know. You say that to your parents. You don't get away
Mm.
with that with your grandparents and your
Mm-mm.
great grandparents. You give them more
Mm-mm.
respect. And that's why I think these multi-generational dynamics. Now, you don't get that as much in business because people, fall off the other end and retire.
You're tired. Yeah.
They're tired or they retire. But I do think that same attitudinal stuff is don't dismiss the things you can learn from the people who came before you. And also the other side is don't dismiss what you learn from the newest employee.
I love this. I think it's a very, very, very good answer, and not a lot of people still get it. You're very much correct on that. Mike, for us to close this amazing episode, what's next for you and the PI? Is there a new idea, a new feature, a new set of knowledge that you're looking to strive, a new book even? What's next that we can keep an eyes out for you?
So my belief, there's a couple things that cause there to be strategic moats around artificial intelligence. And one of those moats that we have in spades, because we're 7 years old, is a lot of data and a lot of science backing that data. And I really feel that AI can unlock that data. I mean, we have an example. We have 500 construct validity studies, scientifically backed studies that we've done for 50 years. No one can know what's in them. No one person can do that.
Yeah.
Whereas AI knows what's in them in 3 minutes. That's the first thing. The second thing is context. When AI by itself is good, but AI with context is
Even
pretty
better.
amazing. And as you build context in AI, so what's really exciting for us is we think there's going to be a great unlocking of our data in science and our ability to provide context. As an example, Victor, this is the first time we've met. If I know your behavioral profile, or more importantly, if the AI knows your behavioral profile, and it knows my behavioral profile, no matter how similar or different, it can suggest the conversation that we're about to
True.
have. It could say, what if I had to tell you, I'm like, Victor, you're doing a great job, but you're not getting the promotion now, but you might in the next 6 months, and here's what we're going to evaluate you on. I plug that in and says, how would Victor like to hear this from me?
Oh, that's
And all of a
actually a
sudden
very
it gives
nice
me an
one.
answer, and it's like, how do you have a tough conversation? How do you speak with context to Victor? Like that is brilliant. And I think it's like a decoder ring for people. And the AI is giving us a great unlock on this so that everyone can have access to this really important information.
That is true. That is true. I'm very much looking forward to this future by itself. We have right now AI for so many things work related. Let's talk about sales again. Contacting new people, outreaching, reading profiles, understanding the ICP, understanding the companies, and again, having the opportunity of embracing this towards talent optimization. I'm not saying HR anymore. Should be what the next companies should strive for. And I'm very glad that we had this conversation to show them that, yes, this is the future you guys should walk towards, or this is something that you should grab and put into your system. Mike,
Well, Victor,
anything else?
thank you for the opportunity. It's great to speak with you.
It was
You know,
great.
it turns out, that maybe people with tattoos can't be trusted with customers, but maybe they give great interviews. So really appreciate your time and your thoughtfulness.
And not only that, if those that are watching us for more than 10 videos, they know that I usually start a conversation by showing my FC Barcelona tattoo. So it is indeed a very good weapon for a podcaster because it is a conversation starter. I can just ask people, for example, whenever I have a French here on the show, my first question is always, are you a PSG fan? And they usually say yes. And then I usually go and show, so I'm not going to be a good host to you because I don't like PSG because I'm a Barcelona fan. So it's all about the jokes about itself. Tattoos are
How about
such an
FC
amazing...
Miami?
No,
How about FC Miami?
This is my God, the only God of the world, Lionel Andres Messi, and I'm very much an Inter Miami fan. I have the pink T-shirt here at home. It's my everything. It's my everything. Whenever Messi is around, and the football that Miami is playing is so beautiful. They played against Palmeiras, which is a club from Brazil with the same color. They just played Palmeiras and it was 2-2. We're like, what a time to be alive with the Club World Cup. It's such an amazing entertainment
it's
thing.
Really fun.
It is fun. But everyone else, thank you so much for being on the show. Mike, thank you so much for being on the show. Hope to have you again in the future. And for everyone else who's still here with us, you're going to find Mike's detail in the description. You're going to find more coffee in the description as well. Go follow the man. Go follow the Predictive Index, and you're going to have a lot of fun. Everyone else, catch you on the next time. Mike, thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.